Hey YouTube, welcome back to my channel. This is Canadian Retro. I've got my pickups and experience here from the Tri-City video game show, which was hosted just this past weekend by Andrew Lenny on September the 10th of 2017. Pretty happy to be able to participate in this. This was going to be the final show, from my understanding, of the Tri-City video game show. So I just wanted to thank Andrew for all his hard work putting this together and keeping it going a little bit longer after it sort of changed out and Waterloo Video Game Swap kind of disappeared, and he sort of kept it going and rebranded it. But unfortunately, he's not continuing with this particular swap meet, which is kind of disappointing to me, just because Waterloo Video Game Swap and swap meets just in general in Waterloo, if you want to count the two, because I really consider them two different sort of venues, or whatever you like to call it. Well, I guess the venue's the same, but just two different kind of events. But needless to say, for me, it holds a really special place in my heart going to Waterloo to go hunting at video game swaps, just because that was my first swap meet that I went to, and I was always a regular participant. I don't think I missed swap meet in Waterloo since they began. I've pretty much been at all of them. I'm fairly certain of it. So that's sort of where I'm at with it. I'm gonna really miss it. It's really part of my regular kind of routine as far as things I go and things I do in a year. So this is something that I'm gonna miss, but unfortunately, or for other people, fortunately, I guess, it's time for people to move on, and that's the way that these things happen. But anyway, to begin with, not to get anybody on a downer kind of thing, I will set up a little bit of footage for you here. So that was some of the flora right there. Unfortunately, this particular event didn't have a whole lot of attendees, according to what I saw. Maybe a few hundred, I think, was probably where it was at. I'm not really certain about that. I didn't really get any official numbers on that, but it did not seem too overly busy. And that's not too bad actually from a hunting point of view, because vendors are really willing to make deals, wanted to make sales, or maybe were bored and wanted to make trades just to have some action at their table. So that's really the way I was approaching it, and I probably picked up more at this swap meet than I have at past swap meets very recently, and added some really quality stuff into my collection. So I'll show you this, all of this just about now. So let me get started. First deal I did on the day, I picked up 4 NES games. Just grab them here, and this is in no particular order, but this is a pretty good deal. I got these for 20 bucks. They were basically in a bin, and they were marked $5 NES games, and these were coming from a store which I can see on some of these, like they had upwards of $20 on some of these. There's like 15, 11, 99, and so on and so forth. And although from my knowledge, these games aren't really worth that much. They're probably worth more what I paid for them, but still pretty happy to be able to go up to a store basically and get $5 NES games, because if I saw these ones at thrift shops, I probably would pick them up. And these are all ones I didn't have in my collection already. So the first one here probably isn't going to win any like graphical awards, but I did see some reviews on this, and it gets fairly positive reviews, and that is Cycross. I think that's the way that you say this one. And this is basically just like a racing kind of game. Very simplistic graphics, but I think it looks like a lot of fun and something I'm willing to check out. So that one there, like I said, $5 for that, no problem. I'd never seen it before in the wild, so pretty sweet. This next one here I got way back in the day on the Commodore 64, which is why I wanted to pick this up when I saw it. I've never picked this up before, so I thought it was pretty cool. Now, the Commodore 64 game kind of frustrated me a little bit as a kid. I was pretty young when I was playing the Commodore 64, but I couldn't quite figure out how to really do the controls well on this, so I always ended up like crashing the helicopter and that kind of thing. But when I saw the label on this one, I was like, I recognize that game, because it basically is like a mimic of the Commodore 64 game. And the one thing I remember, and it would be like the only reason why I would pick it up, is just in the Commodore 64 game, the cockpit view, there's a picture basically of like 2 hands holding the throttle and all that kind of thing, and you could just see like the fluid movement of the way the hands moved around when you moved your controller. So I thought it was really neat, and I believe the NES game does the exact same, and that game is Infiltrator. So pretty happy with that pickup, just because of the Commodore 64 memories. I'm fairly certain it's not really that great of a game, but still nonetheless, just because I had played that in the past. Next one here is, I was looking around further actually in front of me, is Thundercade, which I don't really know a whole lot about this one, but I figured for $5, a title I've never seen before, I'd give it a shot. I don't know if you know anything about this one. This is a Sammy game, that's publisher of this one, so I don't really know a whole lot about it, but if you know about Thundercade, you let me know what you think about that. And again, like I said, $5 each, so pretty sweet. And then the last one here is Rocketeer, which the Super Nintendo game gets a fairly bad reputation for it. Kind of like not very good game. But this one here is a fairly decent game from my understanding, so thought I'd give it a shot, and considering the fact that they only wanted $5 for it, I thought I would go for it. Basically, those games, though, I played around market price. I don't think there's much there worth over $5 each, but I thought I'd jump on the deal anyways, just because you never really see NES games out in the wild that often these days. Next thing I picked up, I'm trying to make sure I get the order right here, is this game right here, which probably doesn't mean a lot to you, but again, this is like so totally like nostalgia reasons for me, and that is Greatest Heavyweights on the Sega Genesis. Now, if you've never seen this, this is like Evander Holyfield's Real Deal Boxing, which is the game I actually had on the Genesis way back in the day. And this one here I saw because a friend showed me this after I showed him my copy of Evander Holyfield's Real Deal Boxing. I was playing it, and I remember he said, there's another game, Greatest Heavyweights, that's this game, only it's a little bit the game I'm playing, the Evander Holyfield one, only it's better because it has like all the different boxers in it. So like on the cover here is like Muhammad Ali, Jack Dempsey, and so on. There's like a whole bunch of different ones on the front here. So just kind of like ups the ante when it comes to like the second version of that game. But I really enjoyed the Evander Holyfield game. I used to play it like crazy back in the day. So wanted to get my hands on this and retry that one out after I had played it a little bit, not as much as the Evander Holyfield one, but really wanted that one. And I was looking for it at the Barrie Game Exchange, and I didn't actually see it. And then I was just kind of looking around at this swap meet, looked on the ground, and there was a box on the ground, had a whole bunch of games in it, and this was sitting like right on top of it, which is pretty sweet. And I got that one for $5, which is a killer deal, I think, for that one, because I think it probably goes for like around 10 or more. So it was like, you know, like half price. So I figured, why not? Pretty cool deal. The next one here, I'm trying to remember the order, I believe was this game right here. I did a trade for this game with another vendor who, you know, I think he runs a store, because you can tell like just has the way he has like everything price tagged and everything. But he hooked me up with a pretty good deal on this one, just because I was able to trade directly for it, which is really nice. And essentially speaking, I'm pretty sure what I had valued the games that I traded to him was the exact same price that he was asking for this. Now, this might have been a little bit overpriced, but for me it's more interesting just because, you know, I'll trade games that I can find, and I figure I will find again in the future for games like this, which is Super Bomberman 2. So I picked this one up just because I kind of got the first one, Super Bomberman, not Bomberman on the NES, but Super Bomberman, you know, on the Super Nintendo, and I figured I'd get the second one as well. And this one gets pretty good praises, although you don't hear a whole lot of people talking necessarily about this game. It's pretty cool, and I've never found it in the wild before, so it's a nice addition to the collection. And which kind of brings me into my next point, which is I picked up this next item because I really have been looking for it for a little bit of time here, and I figure it's going to be very useful for the live stream I'm doing for Extra Life. So the reason why I picked this up right here, which is the Super 5 multiplayer adapter, I picked this up just because during the live stream, if you remember last year, there was a number of people over at my place, and I think that this would be cool to be able to play some like Super Nintendo games with multiplayer. So the Bomberman games that I picked up, really I picked those up for that purpose, really, so we can play some, you know, multiplayer games. And this supports up to 5 people. One would be the other controller that would be plugged in, and then this one has 4 ports on it, which is really nice. Unfortunately, this is not, you know, the first party kind of one. I was assured that this actually works, so I'm not totally certain necessarily that it does, but hopefully it works with the Retron 5. If it does, then I'm in luck, and we'll be able to play when we're live streaming some multiplayer games. Probably that, and like NBA Jam or something like that with it would be really cool. So I picked that up, and that was $10. I thought that was a good deal. And then from the same vendor, this was on a different occasion, though this wasn't at the same time. I kind of saw this after the fact. I was going through his NES games, and I just happened to see this game, and I thought, you know, this is a really killer price for this title, and it's something that I kind of wanted to get into my collection for quite some time now, so pretty happy with it. And that is...
And then it was time for Toronto to drown in the sweet sorrow of the clash at Demon Head!
So the game that I picked up, if you didn't get it from that, is Clash of Demon Head, which from Scott Pilgrim, the band, one of the bands was named after this particular title here. I really wanted to get my hands on this. Now, this is a semi-flawed game, but a pretty decent one, and I like the structure of it. You really get to travel in different directions, like a very branching sort of pathway system. You can go and talk to like different people and get different kinds of upgrades depending on which pathways you choose. And really lots of replayability, I think, to this game. I think some of the criticism around this game might be, you know, the graphics are a little bit less complicated, but when I looked at them, I thought they were pretty decent for an NES game. And at the same time, I think a little bit of hit detection issues might exist with this one, but still, if you can get over those things, I think this is a quality title to add into my collection, and something that I really want to give a shot and play for a little bit at least. So for $5, why not? Really cool game right there. Clash of Demon Head. Like I said, did not have that one already. And the last two games I got were in a trade that I did, and they were from two different vendors, but they were both trades that I did. One of them was a trade I did with Bowser's Fart Sack, because this was sort of the first of the two trades that I did with these guys. But a pretty cool game that I ended up getting here from him. I traded him a couple items. I'm not going to get into details about what exactly I traded to him, just because he's a friend of mine and I don't really want to discuss that stuff on my channel, specifically what I traded for it. But it was comparable for me, and honestly the things that I was trading to him I'm probably going to find again out in the wild. So this one here, I didn't think I was going to be able to find it, but again, if you need an introduction, here you go.
Biker Mice from Mars. Biker Mice from Mars. Biker Mice from Mars.
So that game there is Biker Mice from Mars. If you don't know this, and you couldn't tell from it, this is basically like a 90s cartoon, early 90s cartoon that came out, basically mimicking like the Ninja Turtle craze at the time period, but really interesting game. It's not like a clone kind of thing of the TMNT game. It's actually a racing game, which is sort of isometric, like Rock and Roll Racing or RC Pro-Am, something like that. And I really enjoyed RC Pro-Am in the past, so I figured, you know, why not on this one? When it was explained to me that this game, that's what this game was about, I'm like, you know, I'm willing to check it out. Turns out it's a fairly decent racing game, lots of powers up and power up rather, and some pretty rockin' soundtracks. So I'm pretty happy with this one right here. That's another Konami game that I've added into my collection, which is really nice to be able to do that. And then the last game, probably something that I don't know a whole lot about necessarily, and that was really kind of a theme with some of these. I didn't really know a whole lot about some of these titles when I picked them up. It's just the deal was worth it and they seemed like interesting enough titles. So this one here is also in the same boat as that. I got this from Josh, which is Creepleet, which I pretty much mention in all these videos because I usually do a trade or something with him at some point during most of these shows that we go to. He was vending with Bowser's Fart Sack, and I think he had a pretty decent day from my understanding as far as sales went, even though I was mentioning before the attendance was down. He said he did pretty good on the day, so I was happy for him for that. And he did a trade for me, which again, it was kind of one of those things where it's probably one of those games I'm going to find again out in the wild that I traded to him, but I'm probably not going to find this one, and that is Super Ninja Boy, which, if you don't know anything about this game, this is a RPG style beat 'em up, which is kind of weird. Basically, it's an RPG that plays out, but when you get into your random battles, you're actually doing like a beat 'em up kind of style, sort of in the mode of like River City Ransom kind of idea. So really cool right there. I don't know, again, I think this one might have hit detection issues. It's not necessarily a perfect game, but what an interesting formula, I think, and not something that you see every single day. So I thought I would pick this one up. I kind of found those details out after, but it just kind of sparked my interest. And like I said, when I see something these days and I'm like, I've never really heard much about that, it's sometimes interesting to take a gamble on it, and I'm glad I did, because this looks like a pretty interesting title to play and to add into the collection. So that's everything I got from the Tri-City Video Game Show. It was a pretty good show. Like I said, I picked up a lot of items, and recently at most shows I haven't really been picking up a whole ton of stuff, so it's kind of interesting to you know, be able to come home with some games that I didn't have in my collection already. And basically that's everything I got for you this time around. I'd like to thank Andrew Lenny again for putting on an amazing show. Unfortunately, like I said, though, he's not going to be running any more of these from my understanding, unless he has a change of heart about that, and I doubt that's going to happen. So thank you, Waterloo, thank you, Andrew, for setting up all this stuff, and for your work in the past at previous swap meets before it was the Tri-City Video Game Show. Your work in the Waterloo Video Game Swap, really appreciate it. Really helped me to sort of get my passion for going to these venues and checking out different swap meets and whatnot. So that's everything I have for you this time around. Thanks again for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Feel free to thumbs up this video, comment down below, and I will see you all later.